And now, we wrapped it up with reciprocity, because once you have those dots connected, you should have them do stuff, right? And helping each other is sort of our philosophy. What have you been seeing in your space? Because I know that you join us, but you have a much broader view of the whole automotive space and technology too. Because I know one of your investments now is in space, isn't it?
It is. Yeah. So we are investing in anything mobility related, but having said that, about 2/3 of our investors are either franchise dealer principals and or sort of in the franchise dealer ecosystem. So we're able to kind of keep our fingers on the pulse of what's going on, what's top of mind for dealers. But it's all the same things that are affecting commercial, right? You've got inventories coming back to on the new side, challenges with supply on the used side. Incentives coming back on the new side, in some cases pretty aggressively. Questions around electrification and alternative drivetrains, like hydrogen, and if they are going to catch on. And then, interesting, we still see, things going on with autonomy, not really a threat to anything yet, but it's curious to keep an eye on folks like Waymo specifically, but even Cruise, and trying to figure out the applicability for, heavy trucks, and if any of that's coming. But so it's all the same themes, but it's been interesting since the beginning of COVID. We aren't where I would have expected to have ended up.
I think because I've been around longer than you, maybe this is more what I expected, because people talk a lot and then they don't really, it doesn't really happen, because there's so many conflicting things, right? And of course, right now we're waiting for the next conflicting thing, and just what is it, under 2 weeks or something, we're gonna have we're gonna at least have one decision made, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like you said, there's been a lot more kind of coming to the middle on some of the things that could affect us.
Yeah, I think with the presidential election 6 months ago, I would have said it would have, depending on who gets into the White House, might have a really big effect on the automotive industry in general and electrification specifically. But it does seem like now, over the last 6 months, both parties have kind of converged. And I think, it's all been priced in. So no matter who's in the White House, I don't think that it's really going to cause too much of a disruption to what we've been seeing as a status quo for vehicle sales.
Yeah. I think there's obviously been the hand raising about some of the commercial concerns, the specific concerns around how CARB keeps trying to push the envelope, but in a way, it's different to make it inconvenient for people, but you can't do that in the commercial space, because, even what we had, the ports were closed for such a short time and it had such a big effect. When you can't have those effects if you want to have an economy that's running right.
Yeah, anyone who's running a commercial fleet has to have long lead times, where they have to, put more fuel efficient vehicles into fleet or retire more vehicles, et cetera. And these cannot be things that, flip flop back and forth with the wind. It's going to be pretty much locked in for them to be able to make these bigger, longer term capital commitments.
Right. And I know I was at I guess it was in September, I was at NTEA's Executive Leadership Summit, and there were engineers from Ford, GM, and Freightliner. And listening to them talk, the OEMs, about how challenging it is to be under pressure, to be making changes without any idea of adoption or without any idea of, what the return. So on the one hand, their goal is to change as little as possible. On the other hand, they're getting so much, pressure to change. It was a very interesting panel, because I felt sorry for them, honestly. It's what I did.
I feel sorry as much as one can feel sorry for them, like for the automakers over the last 4 years, because everyone miscalled the ball in terms of how much consumer demand there was going to be for like plug-in battery vehicles. And it was commercial as well. And as a result, the automakers took hundreds of billions of dollars in some cases of losses on, getting ahead of that, establishing battery factories and retooling their ICE vehicle factories to deliver EVs, and then, ran headlong, despite pretty juicy consumer incentives, into like consumers that just weren't ready to like wholesale embrace EVs yet. Hybrids have been an interesting bridging technology, but the poor automakers are stuck in the middle, saying if we can't anticipate how quickly consumers are going to want these things, then how can we forecast how aggressively to move into these new
Right.
powertrains?
How to invest. I mean, I believe in alternative fuels. I believe in electric in the commercial space. We've tracked it for years now, and talked about it at the Commercial Vehicle Business Summit in panels and individually. And it makes great sense for some use cases, and some it may never make sense for.
Right.
But I will say we're very excited right now because we're starting to see more of the clarity, the real total cost of ownership, the real use case. And once you start getting into enough experience, you can start making things really happen. And so I'm getting more bullish about what we're going to see in 2025. And I know you guys look at the economy at the NTEA meeting. They have an economist that was talking about 25 likely being a good steady growth year, right? Maybe starting off a little soft in Q1, and this is all, of course, on the context of commercial, right? But do you believe that we're on the path for that?
Well, I'm not an economist, but it does seem like at least the Fed has taken preemptive steps with some small interest rate drops, and they've got more dry powder to continue to drop interest rates. So it seems like they're going to be on the ball either way to be able to dial up or dial down interest rates to stimulate the economy. We'll see what happens with the presidential election. I mean, there may be some overhang there. It's curious to me that the stock markets continued to hit record highs despite the uncertainty of the election, but it just goes to show that I guess in terms of like institutional investors, they're confident that either way it's going to work out well.
Yep.
Longer term, I mean, I do worry about just the debt. Either candidate's going to continue to run up the deficit and thus the debt, and eventually that's going to come back and haunt America. But luckily enough for us in the U.S. here, the U.S. dollar is still the currency of choice of the world, and as long as that's the case, and the rest of the world has confidence that the U.S. will continue to be able to repay its debts, we're in good shape.
Absolutely.
If for whatever reason that changes, I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that. But for the time being, I don't imagine in the short term anyway, there's going to be any crisis of confidence around the U.S. and their debt obligations.
I think what I like to hear, of course, the U.S. GDP is very service oriented, right? And even though we're getting more manufacturing back, I'm also hearing about how we continue to grow that service part, which of course is the foundation of the commercial industry. So
yeah, we just need to continue to stimulate and be at the forefront of innovation in this country, which we have been for the last 100 years. Absolutely. And has allowed us to become this dominant economy on the face of the earth. But I mean, we can't lose sight of that. We have to be very intentional, I think, about just entrepreneurs like yourself, and making sure you have the resources to continue to anticipate what big pain points are out there and solve those pain points and create value on both sides of that exchange. And that's what has made America great since its beginning, and will continue to do so.
I loved hearing that. That was great. And it is how I think about our great country. It really is. So let's just talk a second about my favorite new word, not new, but my favorite word right now, which is reciprocity, because that's the other thing that makes what we do work. Everything how we build faster, how we build better is more than one party working together and combining their knowledge, combining their energy, combining their vision, and continuing to grow, right? Where are you seeing that happening in your part of the words?
Yeah, I mean, so as I get older, I mean, you realize that really the juice that makes everything work is collaboration and community. And I think that especially in our industry, which while it's very large, it seems very small in terms of the network of folks, right, that can help each other out. So I just am always amazed with folks that I may have met 20 years ago that suddenly get into a position and we're back working together. So it is a sort of a small universe. And I think being very deliberate with the quality and the quantity of the networks that you maintain. You and I are a good example. You know, we've now known each other for a number of years, and you know, we often catch up to talk about business and are able to make introductions to folks on both sides. But no, I think that anyone, whether you're just starting your career in this industry or you've been around for as long as I have, grows very quickly to understand just how small it is and how much of this is built on relationships
And trust.
and trust.
You know, I think that's what attracted me the most about the commercial space. And I'm not saying that the retail side of the business isn't also based on trust, but B2B is different. B2C, business to consumer, there's a kind of a inferred corporate brand trust, right? It's not, although I do see that dealers are finally learning that maybe it would be a good idea to bring some of that B2B style over to how they work with their customers, right? But in the commercial space, it's always been about, you know, who I trust the most to help me get my problem solved, because I don't have the time and energy to go and figure it all out myself. So having a dealer, so one of the things that we've been really working on is helping the dealer elevate how they think about their relationships with their customers as more of a consultative relationship, which not only is important because of that relationship of trust, but also because there's so much happening that you need, you know, if you're a business, you need an expert, you need a specialist, somebody who's going to help you navigate electric vehicles, navigate, you know, telematics, navigate, what should I do for planning, right? How do I plan ahead what I need? Because, you know, the yo-yo of 2 years ago, we had no inventory and now there's so much of it, right?
Right.
So it's a very exciting time right now, because I think that, you know, this is what I get passionate about, is that elevating, you know, your processes and your thinking around that mutual benefit. And that's what reciprocity is all about.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is consumers buy from brands they like and they trust. And people in general, whether in a business setting or, you know, buying consumer goods, they buy from people that they trust and they like. So, I mean, just be intentional with the relationships that you build over the course of your career. And like you said, I mean, if retailers aren't clued in to the fact that they're building lifetime relationships with their customers, I mean, the most successful dealers that I've ever met have much more of a long-term sort of lifetime value perspective
Right.
than something short-term and transactional.
You know, we're actually building right now a lifetime value model for commercial.
Oh, there you go. Nice.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Our VP of sales, Stacy Williamson, she actually, her team took the time to listen to recently a bunch of the inbound phone calls that, you know, we record all the phone calls for the dealers to listen to, but they don't necessarily always take advantage of that. But we took the time to do that and found that, you know, on the one side, you think about retail, you need 100 leads to get, you know, a buyer or 2 buyers or 3, whatever, and each one of them are buying one vehicle, right?
Right,
but on the
right.
commercial side, you get one phone call comes in, and so far the average has been they're buying 3 vehicles. And the
Right.
phone call it's not, it's like every phone call that's coming in is they're buying, because there aren't looky-loos in commercial.
Right.
These
Right.
are businesses that have to get to that next point, and that's what they're doing. So we're
Interesting.
developing some really, I think, some very, hopefully this will be helpful to the GMs and the dealer principals for them to, and their marketing teams to understand, no, there's not going to be 100 leads. There's going to be
Right.
10 of them, and those 10 are going to turn into 30 sales. I mean, like, you know, you understand the difference, right? So
Yeah.
yeah. So
Very cool. And when do you expect that'll be out, that new product?
you know, by the end of the year for sure.
Oh, great. Like, very exciting.
Yeah,
Can't wait to see it.
we're doing some market studies too, how we kind of map in market needs as aging vehicles happen, looking at the vocational use cases,
Mhm.
because, we've been able to map vocations to the types of upfits, right? So if you
Sure.
see that, a plumber has a 9 or 10-year-old vehicle, they're a pretty good candidate, to be talking to, not just about replacing it, but, like what their life is like right now and what they need to look for. Because should they be looking at electric vehicle, or should they be looking at, how to better finance it? Like financing is
Right.
another big thing that's very different for commercial, right?
Right. Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Very interesting.
fun.
Love it.
I like
That's
it.
great.
Yeah. Have a great rest of the year, because I know that we won't see each other until December. We're both going to be at Autovate, which is a really great event that Cliff puts on, right? Cliff Banks.
I'll be there, and I can't wait to see you. And we'll have to figure out what our dinner reservations need to be.
Yeah, just for everybody else that's watching this, Steve and I have fun when we go out and have a dinner. Like
Right.
we're explorers, we're
Right.
adventurers. So,
Right.
hey, thank
Trying
you
to
so
find
much.
something unique in every city. Well,
You're
Kathryn, thank you, and thanks for having me. And kudos again, and congratulations for putting on yet another great conference.
Well, thanks for putting the cherry on top.